First of all, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to sit down with me so I can ask you all these questions. First, I would love if you could introduce yourself to the people out on the internets and tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm Averee Chifamba. I am the owner and primary midwife right now at Saddlepeak Birth. And we run a concierge home birth practice here in Bozeman and surrounding areas. We will go up to 2 hours away to bless families with home birth in the area. So it's not just Bozeman Central that we work with. And then we also do craniosacral therapy coupled with lactation for moms postpartum. So that's not just strictly home birth clients that we do that for. We'll do that across the board for whoever needs it. So we see a lot of hospital moms, a lot of moms that are seeing other midwives or the birth center, that are needing help with lactation postpartum. So we see them as well in that regard. And then we do everything birth. We do placenta encapsulation if you need it. We have a whole store of stuff that we make as far as like herbal products, but primarily we focus on home birth in the Gallatin Valley.
Fantastic. Thank you. Can you tell us what drew you to midwifery as a calling?
It's really interesting because when you asked me to do this, I was sitting and I was pondering this over the last week, and I was like, what drew me to midwifery? I guess I've never been asked that specific question yet. And as I sat pondering, I was like, when I started my journey, I always just assumed I would be in medicine. Like I was just always told that as a kid growing up, like you love kids and you're going to be a doctor one day. And I guess I just never questioned that. And so when I started going to MSU, I was like, well, I'm going to be a doctor. That's what I'm going to do, is like go into women's health and be a doctor. And and then when it came to MCAT time, I was sitting there and I'm like, this doesn't fit me, right? And so I was pondering, I was like, what is it really that brought me to midwifery? Because when my best friend was sitting there in worship practice and was like, you would be a great midwife. And I was like, wow, I don't even really know what they do. I better check this out. As I started on my journey of midwifery, and I sat here pondering this the other day, I thought back to the first home birth that I was a part of, which was hers, my best friend's. And I was sitting there pondering her birth. And I was like, what was it that drew me to midwifery? Because it was a standard, beautiful first time birth, right? But I was like, it wasn't necessarily the medical piece per se, or the baby coming out, or the newborn. Like those are not the pieces that stood out to me. Honest to Pete, like I was sitting there and I go, wow, it was the empowerment of the woman to birth the way that she wanted to birth, to have the community of women around the family that was helping her birth, and that powerful piece of handing that healthcare back to her. It was very relational. And I was like, was it really relationship that brought me to midwifery? Like that's the piece for me that like it finally dawned on me that I was like, holy cow, like we were able to love her as deeply as we wanted to love. There was nobody that told us it was wrong or that it was too much. So we could love her however she needed to be loved, find her in the place that she was and meet her there, and then hand her back these pieces to where she was so empowered to take the next step as a mom. Like I truly believe it was a calling that fell on me that day, because I can't even put my finger on what it was when you asked me that question. It was just like, it was this gorgeous set of things that collided. And I was like, that's me. That's my heart in a job. And so from that day forward, I was like, the midwife that I was watching help this birth, she goes, you caught the birth bug. And I was like, I did catch the birth bug. And I think it was really the birth fire, where it was like, and it's the home birth fire, it's the midwifery fire, I think, that I caught. And so does that kind of answer? It's a very long-winded answer, but that one like really opened my eyes when you asked me that. And it was just a really cool discovery this week to like think back to that and find the heart of why I do what I do all over again.
Thank you so much for that answer.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What part of midwifery itself really lights a fire in you now? Can you tell us a bit about that?
It's the people. I have no other answer except the people that I get to connect with, like the team, the clients, the beauty, the relationship. It just makes it. It's like what makes the world go round to me is connecting with people and seeing their hearts and being in that space with them. And whether it's like finding out that they're newly pregnant, or hearing the heartbeat for the first time, or watching them become a mom and pull that baby up on their chest. Like every one of those connections is just like little nuggets of gold that I get to hold on to, that I get to witness, that nobody else gets. Like it's so cool. I get all of them all to myself. So I think the relationship piece for me is probably my favorite part of midwifery care.
Now, why do you think midwifery is needed in Bozeman when we have a hospital that offers prenatal care and labor and delivery services? So why midwifery?
The best way that I have come to be able to explain this is like, when I was younger and I was on this competitive volleyball team, and we would go every other weekend to compete in tournaments, and we would have to search for a hotel, right? All the hotels that you could find online, or Airbnbs, or wherever, you search for a place to stay, you can either choose like the budget option, which is great financially to do, or you can choose the 5-star hotel experience, right? So you know that when you choose a hotel that's nicer and it's higher in stars, you're going to get people that really care about you. You're going to get really comfortable rooms. You're going to get a great night's sleep because the beds are higher quality. Like both places are still going to give you a bed to sleep in and a parking spot, right? Like in the end. But then when you really dive into that experience, what do people pay for? They're going to pay for the comfort. They're going to pay for feeling lavish and important and cared for and tended and loved and all of those pieces, right? That's exactly the same thing. Like in the end, whether you choose midwifery care or birth center or hospital, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to get a baby out one way or the other. And we can never guarantee the outcome of a home birth. Like you're still going to get a baby, but it's the experience surrounding getting that baby out that makes midwifery care so different. And I really believe that like why we need it in Bozeman or anywhere is because women have the right to choose how they want their process to be. I don't think they should be forced into any one way or another. So I think we need it because women deserve to choose how they want to have their babies. Like that's the bottom answer. But in all reality, it's just a completely different experience. It's going to be like going in and having that 5-star dining experience, that concierge service at a hotel, those kinds of pieces. When you deal with a home birth midwife, they come to you. Like there's longer appointments. They care about your heart. They dive into your family. Like that's why we only see a few clients a month, because we dive in so deeply with you that we can tailor that care directly to who you and your family are. And so it's just a completely different experience.
Thank you. That really explains it well. And this is a really common question, fear. Can midwifery or home birth really be as safe as giving birth with a doctor in the hospital?
Yes. I think oftentimes women and families that don't search out home birth or search out any kind of out of hospital birth really look into the education that their midwives have. And so I think the safety aspect, when they're actually questioning safety, it comes from a place of unknown. Like they don't have answers as to what's actually keeping them safe. Because even in the hospital, like they can't guarantee life or death. They can't guarantee C-section or no C-section. They can't guarantee intervention or no intervention. Like they don't have a little crystal ball in the hospital either. And so honestly, I think that it comes down to a few pieces. I think number one, where the woman feels the safest is going to be, and be able to surrender, I guess, is going to be the place where she's more than likely going to birth the best that she can birth. And so as far as safety goes, I mean, all of the midwives in the Valley we're licensed. Like we go to school, we're trained in emergencies, we know how to use the medications and all of that kind of stuff. So it's like we are trained and skilled the exact same way that the OBs are trained and skilled in the hospital. And so as far as the safety piece goes, I think a lot of people are like, safety wise, there's a C-section option available that's right there. And even though it has happened, like I have heard stories of where C-sections were needed right now and right away, usually babies give us warning signs. And so at home, like we're not just sitting there and waiting for an emergency to find us if if it happens. We're actually listening to babies. We're doing vitals on mom. Like we're doing all of the medical stuff that they watch for in the hospital as well. We do it a little bit more keen with our ears so that we hear it sooner. So if there is a reason that our baby starts talking to us through their heartbeat and tells us that they need some further care or that they're not handling it well, then we can transfer in enough time to get to the hospital, because the hospital's still on our team. Like, they're part of every home birth midwifery team in the valley. It's just they've got the C-sections and they've got the epidurals that we need if we need them. If not, then we take really good care of our parents. So yes, I think that if a mom can surrender and have her baby in the comfort of her own home and she feels safest there and she can relax the most there, then absolutely. Like, there's no difference medically. Like, we're still trained professionals that take care of moms.
That was fantastic.
Okay.
I think so many people believe that midwives are still kind of this woo, alternative, weird thing that maybe isn't as safe, or a lot of people may not even know the difference between a doula who provides labor support and a midwife who is actually your medical care provider in that situation. So hearing you say that you have all the training, all the medical training of an OB, you just can't administer an epidural or do a C-section. Those are things that need to happen in the hospital, but otherwise,
As far as that goes, like, there's also this missing piece that most women don't think about. So when you go into a hospital and you're giving birth in a hospital, you come in, the nurses really, they do the IVs, they'll do the blood work for you, they'll come in and get you ready, and then you'll see the doctor for a few minutes, and then once that doctor has like done the vaginal exam and assessed you, they walk out again and they go to clinic, they go to all these other places. They're rarely in the room with you until the baby starts coming out again, or until assessment is needing to be done. The nurses are really the ones that are watching over you and tending to you in labor. And then the OB comes in and they deliver the baby, they suture if sutures are needed. And then once that's done and like placenta is out and they have sutured, they once again leave the room. And so nurses care for you postpartum. And then if anything happens with the baby, they've got a neonatal intensive care unit or the nursery that comes in and does the newborn exam and all of that kind of stuff. We do all of that. So we are the care for mom and baby from the time they start care with us through 6 weeks postpartum. So we do all of the blood draws and the tests and everything prenatally. We're going to see the moms the same as they would be seen at the hospital. So every 4 weeks up until 28 weeks, we do the glucose visit at 28 weeks. We see them then every 2 weeks through 36 weeks, and then we see them weekly after that. So it's going to be the same care schedule. It's going to be the same tests offered. We offer the GBS test and all of that kind of stuff. So you're still getting the same base level of care and like testing that you could get done. But the difference is that you're seeing the same provider the whole time. So you're getting that continuity. So like, we know our clients inside and out. We know those babies inside and out. Like, their heartbeat becomes like a song to us in prenatals. And so if they start talking to us, we're going to know they don't sound like themselves and we can act quicker. And so then going into birth, we are there with them during active labor on. Like, we are listening to heart tones. We are doing the vitals. Like, that stuff is not missed. If there's something that's coming up, like, we see it because we're there the whole time. Our team is there the whole time. And then carrying into the postpartum, like if baby needs help or mom needs help, or we're just facilitating this beautiful postpartum journey, we're checking on both of them. So we're doing vitals for mom and baby postpartum. And then if anything is needed with baby or lactation or breastfeeding through 6 weeks, that's us. Unless either of them go outside of that normal boring umbrella, right? That's like safe for midwifery care. At that point, we assess and then we can move them to higher care if we need to. But most of the time, they're healthy. And so we are caring for mom and baby the whole time. So we love working with doulas. Doulas and midwives can work simultaneously together. And I often get the question, well, I'd like to use you. Do I need to hire an OB as well? Like, that's a very common question, actually. And I'm like, no, like, you don't have to do both unless there's a reason to have co-care in the picture. Like, midwives are the care providers here in the Gallatin Valley through 6 weeks postpartum. Like, we do everything that they would get in any kind of care clinic in a hospital.
I'll just speak really quickly to the co-care thing because that's something that I experienced with my second baby. I really wanted to have a birth center birth for my second baby because my first was in the hospital and it was a great birth. I showed up at the hospital pushing, had a baby, like next to no intervention. So the second time around, I was like, I got this. I tried to get my health insurance to cover a home birth. They wouldn't. I escalated it to like the highest level of appeal, and this was United Healthcare, and they said no like 3 times.
Most of them do.
Yeah.
It's not just United.
So I was like, all right, birth center. And then I did end up choosing co-care with my OB who had been at delivery for my first baby because my baby was breech. And I didn't know, well, I believed that he was flipping and changing positions all the time. And so I really wanted that birth center birth. But in the state where I was at the time, a midwife could not legally deliver a breech baby in the birth center. So I kept my OB kind of in my back pocket, stayed on as one of his patients, even though I think towards the end, I did start seeing him again for prenatal appointments, but then was also under the care of my midwife as well. And when the day came, I ended up needing an unplanned C section for multiple reasons. My baby was still breech, he was still high, he hadn't engaged, he had an extended head, I had almost no amniotic fluid left. Da 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 da. I was like, okay, this is the birth this baby needs. So I'm laying on the operating table, and all of a sudden there's a person at my shoulder, and it's a woman's voice, and she goes, "Hi, Maggie." And I look up, and it's my midwife, who had privileges at the hospital, and I didn't even realize. So she assisted my obstetrician with my cesarean surgery, which was amazing.
Well, how did your heart feel about that? Like having your midwife, even though things didn't go as planned?
It felt incredible. It was a game changer because as much as I'd made peace with this is the birth that I need to have, the birth that my baby needs, I was still scared. I'd had so much surgery previously due to this car accident I was in when I was in my 20s. I was not looking forward to being cut open again. And I was scared, and hadn't just had an experience with my anesthesiologist where he had restrained my arms without telling me why, and I panicked a little bit, but luckily knew enough to advocate for myself. And I told him to let me go, don't tie me down. And he did. He was still a dick about it, but but he did. And so I had just gone through that experience, and then all of a sudden, my midwife was right there with me, and she was an incredible woman. She is. She was older, really had that sort of matriarchal, maternal, grandmother, like anchored kind of energy. And I was just like, oh, like it really is going to be okay because she's here. So can you talk, I know that you go with your moms if they transfer to hospital. So can you talk a little bit about that and what that experience is?
So we take 3 to 4 people on our team at every home birth in case there is a need for either mom and baby to both have a team if they need help postpartum or if we transfer. So one of my really big passion points is that they're my client's primary team, so it would be 2 of us, go with them to the hospital if they need to transfer. And so we stay with them. We have all of the records, all of the labs, all of the ultrasounds, everything like that ready to hand the hospital if we transfer. And then we stay there. So if a doula is with us as well, then we keep them on physical support for mom. And then we front all of the questions at the hospital. So when they walk in and mom is like getting her IV put in and we're making sure baby's on the monitor and safe, I am over at the computer with one of the nurses doing intake, all of the lab questions, all of the ultrasound stuff, like everything that they need to know medically for her in order to get her safe and into a place where we need her to be. They don't have to worry about all of the medical stuff. Like the clients don't have to worry about the medical stuff. That's my job to go in and talk to the OB, to make a plan with them. You know, oftentimes depending on which hospital we go to, I'm even asked at some of the hospitals, like, what's our plan? Why are you here? What's going on? Like, how are we going to proceed with this? You know, or we can at least have a discussion with the OB as far as like, this is what's been going on. Here's her history. Here's who she is. This is what her desires are. So that's a big one. Like she's really naturally minded, doesn't want intervention, isn't interested necessarily in an epidural, but we're here for an epidural. And so I just want to tell you that's what's going on in her heart as we walk into this space. This is who she is. And we have found it to be incredibly peaceful with transfers because there is so much communication with the hospital. And we know, like, we don't go in with our boxing gloves up, like, hey, we're just going to fight it, right? We need something. We need help from them. We need further care, either mom or baby. One of them needs help. And so we go in, they respect us as care providers, we respect them as care providers, even though things are done very differently, which makes the whole transition very smooth so that our clients don't think that they're being like blindsided or something, in the picture. Like, we can come back with care plans, we can talk about what it's going to look like. And then we stay there and advocate for mom as well. So, like, if they're wanting some kind of intervention done, and I can tell mom doesn't feel good about that, then I can help foster that discussion between the care provider and be like, hey, can you give us a little more information? Or can you let us know the why behind why you want to do this? Or how would this change if we decided not to do this? If we declined it, what would that look like? And so it's more of a fostering a relationship with another part of your team that you just haven't met yet. But we have done the fostering behind the scenes to make it a really smooth transition for mom.
A lot of people maybe who choose midwifery care are actually really afraid of the hospital. And so, in a situation where a transfer is required, that must make a world of difference into their level of anxiety and fear walking into the hospital, knowing that you're there with them and there to sort of help them navigate this whole transition.
Oftentimes, I think that people feel if we transfer from a home birth, that they just have to say goodbye to their midwifery team. And so I just kind of want to combat that fear a little bit and say, we don't leave you. We never leave your side as your midwife. Like, we're still there as your midwife. We just don't have the privileges of being able to like work in C-sections and that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that we leave you as your midwife. And so I can't ever guarantee a vaginal birth. I can't guarantee, an alive baby. I can't guarantee any of that, but we do our darn tootiness best to get you everything that you want. And most of the time, it's like being empowered to make decisions for yourself or being autonomous and being given the options that are in front of you and not being blindsided. And so, as your midwife, like, I stick right beside you, whatever that birth looks like, even if it's the worst case scenario of a C-section. And I've really this past year shifted my mindset that worst case scenario is a C-section isn't how I view it anymore, because sometimes that means we get a baby that's alive in our arms. And so I'm like, even a C-section, I don't see those as bad. Like, I have really had some shift over the last few years as a midwife, and I'm like, C-sections are a gift when they're needed. They're a huge gift when they're needed. And so then I can come along my clients and I can say, okay, so how can we still make this empowering? Even if we had to have a C-section, how can we set you up postpartum and come in and care for you in your home and like swoop you back up postpartum? Because that's what we do. So we still care for them postpartum when they get home. So we take them from the hospital, we scoop them back under our wings, and we still care for mom and baby through 6 weeks postpartum. So they're not losing their midwife. We just have brought in another aspect of their care team because we needed them in the picture for this one. And we're still their midwives.
I think this speaks to my next question. What's the biggest challenge or issue facing expecting families in the Gallatin Valley today?
The thing that I hear the most about as far as challenges is financial for everybody. So, I mean, midwifery care costs for sure. I would say it's like most people's deductible, if not a little bit more, that they are mostly paying out of pocket. A lot of the midwives in the valley do run things through insurance, which is a big deal. But I think that's what I hear the most about is, let's say we have a cash pay mom or a Medicaid mom or somebody that's working 2 jobs and mom has to take a break while she's pregnant or something like that. I would say the financial tug and pull is probably one of the biggest hurdles that I see in the Gallatin Valley. And that's probably due to the fact that there's a lot of like an increase in cost of living here. There's an imbalance, I guess is what I would call it. I don't feel like normal people, like the normal working class here in the Gallatin Valley, has it very easy at all. Like, I feel like a lot of people feel stuck financially. And so there are definitely resources, that are out there and available. I know for our practice, we offer in-house financing for a lot of people. We will run any insurance except Medicaid. We don't do Medicaid. We'll offer any insurance billing that we can through our biller. So we actually have somebody that specializes to get you the most back that we can out of insurance. And then we also do care credit. So if you can't just like pay in cash in full, that doesn't mean that you can't consider out of hospital birth. Like every midwife in the area has a lot of different options for payment plans and stuff to make it totally feasible for people. And anyway, the care credit option that we offer, they can go up to 5 years to pay for it. So I would say even with the financing ins and outs of what it is, people will still pay $200 to $300. It's like a car payment, which makes it totally doable for a lot of families. And so I don't want them to feel like it's out of the question for them. Like, just talk to your midwives. We're nice people. We're really nice people. And we want you to have a home birth too, if that's where your heart is. So even though that's the biggest hurdle, there's ways to overcome it.
It's really great to know. And I think what a lot of people lose sight of too is even with insurance, you still have to pay your deductible. You still have this big out-of-pocket expense at some point. And paying for midwifery care gives you so much more than what you get in a medical setting where you go to your prenatals, but then you're kind of on your own for the rest of it, whereas you really provide support in addition to helping mom deliver her baby. I think you've already answered this question. What about your care makes working with you as an expecting parent extra special? I think we know now. So like, wow, amazing. On a more serious note, what is the most serious complication you've dealt with during a birth and how did you handle it?